And we are live, and I am beyond excited for today because I have Jay Abraham coming on live with me. If you can even believe that, I just am beside myself. I've got him actually over here on Zoom, making sure that we get all connected here. So any moment now, he is going to join me, and we're going to talk about solving big business problems. We're going to talk about what's been going on the past year and a half for a lot of business and where to even begin to solve problems. So if you know Jay, there he is. I see him on here, and waiting for you to just. I think you just have to request to join. Almost there. I totally heard the delay on Zoom. Hey guys, hello to those of you who are joining.
Brian, how do I do that? How do I do that, Brian? So,
we're just getting Jay to request to join. Let me see if I can request you.
Wait, let's see. Hold on. Official. Okay, here it is. Send a request to the Draw Shop live video. Okay,
Yep.
just hit it.
All right, so I'm going to pop off. I'm going to go live with here.
I'm going to get off too. All right, are you there? Thank you.
And there he is.
Okay, here.
We
You never
did
look
it.
as good. You look good. I don't look as good on my phone.
Oh, yeah, you do. You always look good.
Oh, it's funny. How are you?
I am so good. I'm so excited. I was just telling those of us who've joined that I'm geeking out. I'm super excited. Like you're just amazing to be able to get to spend a few minutes with you, especially when I know how much it costs to spend a day with you. It's incredible. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. And I'm holding my phone, so if it keeps moving, I apologize to everybody.
You know, that's the organic great thing about Instagram Live. It doesn't even matter.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, what do we want to talk about?
Well, let's do a little bit of, gosh, you've done so many amazing things, but let's just give a little bit of background on who you are and, what you do and how you help businesses.
Do you want me to do that?
Yes. I gave a little bit, but I want to hear it from you.
It's fine. So just context. I've been growing businesses for about 4 decades, a long time. And I guess my not claim to fame, but my uniqueness is that I've been involved in about 1,000 industries.
Oops.
Can you still see me?
Okay, I can now. It paused for a little bit.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I hope it doesn't do that again. So I've been involved in over 1,000 industries, not businesses. And the advantage of that is that you get to see an enormous spectrum of different ways of doing, thinking, acting, transacting, hundreds of different ways to execute strategy, hundreds of different marketing approaches, hundreds of different business models, revenue models, access vehicles. And it has given me the advantage of being the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. In other words,
Uh-oh, we're getting a little pause here from, he came back before, he'll come back again. There you go.
I wonder why it keeps going off. Why would it keep going off?
It could be an internet thing.
Yeah, I bet it is. So I apologize, everybody. And if it's broken, I can't do much about it. I'm where it should be great, but we have the cable and it's sort of crappy. But what I was going to say was I'm able to be the equivalent of the one-eyed man in the land of the blind by going to industries where everybody pretty much does the same thing the same way and they follow the herd. And concepts that are very frankly as common as dirt in other industries aren't known to the industry you're in. And by taking elements from many and combining them into hybrids, you get great advantage. And just clinically, we've had an enormous number of spectacular successes. And they would have you believe it's because I'm so great, but it's really simply just bringing thinking from outside. I call it funnel vision instead of tunnel vision, because you're looking at ways to operate that none of your competitors understand. And the truth of the matter is that most people do not operate anywhere close to optimal. You're not really using the highest and the best ways of doing things. And even the concept, very honestly, of best practices is somewhat flawed, because it's normally best practices in terms of what that industry does, not what's higher and better performing. It's just if there's one or two related industries, it's how those industries do it best, not alternatives that are higher performing, safer, faster, bigger, more residual. So what I do is really take, and I work right now with dozens of very diverse businesses all over the world and all kinds of different categories. Many are very complex, and it's given me an understanding which is quite profound and unique, and I'm aware of and I'm grateful for, but it allows me to help people look at these lost again. And I also have done a lot of work on what I would call the geometry of a business, how you can make the same time, effort, opportunity cost, capital, access, asset, meaning buyer, prospect, distribution channel, produce far more yield now and in the future. And so I'm known for, everyone talks about the 10x, I don't know why it's doing this, the 10x exponential growth that comes top line, but I'm very much focused on what I would call 10x bottom line growth, because it's easier, faster, safer, costs nothing to get a lot more yield. So that's probably enough of an overview, don't you think?
Oh my gosh, you're amazing. I'm looking at all these comments too coming in. You're the favorite mentor. By the way, you look very handsome, they're saying. So
You're great.
awesome. You're so loved. Well, so gosh, something you said that stuck out so much is that people copy what's industry standard, right? Or they do what they think is the right thing to do, but they're really not actually operating at optimal performance. How do you even know when you're there, and how do you even know how to get there?
We did a book recently, and I'll be happy to give you the digital file. You can put it up for people. It's called The Sticking Point Solution. And the premise was that most people are stuck at 9 different ways, but one of the corollaries is most people who are successfully stuck because they're very happy with above industry average growth. Let's say you're growing at 30%. You think, pretty good. When in fact, the same effort, time, asset could be growing you at 300%. And it could be growing the residual, the recurring business at 1,000%. You just don't know that. I don't think you can I learned optimization when I was much, much younger. And part of it, just from history, it's very interesting. I was privileged to work with about 200 experts, and you know some of them. Mm-hmm. And none of them came to me for help with their methodology. They came to me for help commanding more respect, more revenue, more concrete value that their methodology could produce in use, whether it was for a business or an individual. But I had to learn a distillation of it. So I got a lot of knowledge. Earlier in my career, I worked with, I want to say 3, but I put up 4 fingers, 3 different really interesting companies. One was the Deming Organization, the father of process improvement. And I learned how a process can be multiplied geometrically. And most people don't understand that in a business, you have a revenue system, whether it's a functional one or a dysfunctional one. My phone keeps going dark. I'm not very technological. And if you have a dysfunctional one, you don't know it, but you have as many as 61 impact or levers in that revenue system that can be enhanced. I'm going to go a little bit ADD rogue on you. Our lives have always been benefited, enhanced, and improved by the use of levers, screwdrivers, window cranks, car jacks, light switches, pop top cans. But we don't understand buttons on light switches. I said buttons on the car, wheelbarrows, brooms. But what we don't understand is within a revenue system, there are potentially 30 categories of impact that you can have, and within each one, there's as many as 25 or 30 levels. There, I'm so apologetic.
Yep, you're there. It only
but
happens for a second, so you're good.
I'm glad. I'm so unfamiliar with things that I lose everybody, so I got to be very careful. I'm on Clubhouse, and every time I'm invited to be a key speaker, I end up on the wrong one because I can't even know the right buttons to push. But so you have all this. Now back to I was going to talk about. I worked with the Deming organization on process improvement. I learned all these processes have sub levers within them. Then I worked with the largest largest multivariable testing organization in the world, and they tested thousands of variabilities, different combinations, different way of saying things. Those of you who deal on the phone or deal with the human interaction, we've tested 33 different ways of interacting with people and the front door of a large furniture store, for example, and tripled closures and quadrupled the average sales price. So you got a lot of variability in everything you do. Is optimization is the highest and best use. You cannot optimize, unfortunately, until and unless you have a broader context understanding of alternatives, possibilities, combinations, enhancements, replacements, and that really takes the ability to travel outside your comfort zone and study alternative realities. And I've done that intentionally and earlier in my life. It saddens me because most entrepreneurs, and I presume that you've got a spectrum watching, they dedicate their lives, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days. Their gratification, their esteem, their sense of purpose, their financial expectations, their retirement expectations, their asset to the business. And my life has been almost a crusade or a mission to try to help people get a lot more out of everything, every moment, because that's, they deserve that, but they don't know how to do it. And I hope that this is making sense.
It does. I mean, the thing is, though, is that I notice people get so stuck in the way that they're supposed to do something, the way that they're supposed to generate revenue, and they get so fixated, and if something's not working, they're still not seeing why it's not working. Does that make sense? It's like they're can't see beyond it and what could potentially be a problem, where somebody like you could come in and say, well, right here, and here's this little shift, you could do this differently. That to them is like, wait, oh my gosh, I would have never thought of that.
Well, most people have never learned critical, strategic, or consequential thinking. Mm-hmm. And even if they do, again, their reference frame is normally the one or two industries they've been in. So it's very, very, very limited. I've been blessed. I can look at a business and look at correlations, implications, quantify things, anomalies, see, and respectfully challenge their thinking, because I would, without being arrogant, brash, or sound inappropriate, I would say that 95% of every business is underperforming the potential of the opportunity cost, the assets, the access to the market, the prospects, the buyers, the brand, the distribution channels, when they don't even know it. And the tragedy is that it doesn't cost anymore. And the risk, you can even mitigate risk, but people don't understand it. I mean, I created 30 or 35 different categories, and most people don't even use one of them. I mean, you talk about they do something and it doesn't work. It's funny. Earlier in my career, I created this, and it's pretty well known, the 3-way to grow business model. You increase the number of buyers, you increase the size and the profitability of the transaction, you increase the frequency, the duration, or the utility. And most people fixate totally on the front end. They just want to bring more people in. That's the most expensive, the slowest, the riskiest. But once you get them at the point of sale, if you know how to ethically enhance the size of the transaction. And there's a dozen ways to do it ethically and nobly. You can double, triple the profit of the transaction, even if you only have one product. You have a relationship, you can monetize it many, many ways for a much longer period. And, even things you talked to me earlier about word of mouth and referrals, many people probably watching, smaller ones, have 10 to 100% of their business coming from referral or word of mouth. And yet, I've done this exercise I'm going to tell you about many places. If you ask them if they have even one referral generating systematic strategy in place, 95% of the people for whom 10 to 100% of their business comes from referral do not. If you say two, then 95% of the 5% don't. Three, none of them do. And yet, because I've studied 1,000 industries, we know 150 different ways to get no cost, no risk referrals. And the irony is, a referral generated buyer buys faster, negotiates less, buys more, buys longer, is more enjoyable to deal with, costs you nothing, and refers more people. And yet, most of the people for whom referrals are a part of their on Facebook or on Instagram advertising or other things. And that's the lowest category of trust, because you got to take somebody from suspecting maybe you're not really what they want to getting comfortable to making a purchase, and they're still not necessarily trusting, whereas a referral generated person buys like that. And that's just one of multiple things that we've come up with. But when you see what's possible, and most entrepreneurs don't. I mean, you talk about something not working. We gave birth, 30 years ago to what's called the Power Parthenon of geometric business growth. And the premise is that most people generate the vast majority, if not all, of their business from one revenue source. If anything happens to that revenue source, it's terrible. I mean, I was basically getting paid a couple $100,000 every time I'd speak, and all of a sudden that's gone. So what do? Fortunately, I had 9 or 10 other sources. And if people understand that if you add more revenue pillars, revenue sources to your model, 3 things happen. Number one, you grow geometrically, because if each one only added 10 or 15% more revenue, it's not 10 or 15, it's 10 times 10 times 15 times 20, it's hundreds of percent. But it also hedges you, and it also incrementally, newfound business can be more profitable, because most people, we do a lot of work with larger entrepreneurs, and we'll ask them to tell us what the cost of sales are, and they'll give us a figure, but it's predicated on usually their overhead. Above and beyond that, if I add 10 or 20 or 100 more sales, they could be 5 times more.
Oops. That's okay.
But yeah, but does this help?
This is so helpful. I've got a question here that I think it's a good one to ask. What are in your way new digital trends, what are new digital trends that can lower the funnel or making a more retention of a customer?
Well, I think the first thing is understanding, and we don't call them customers, we call them clients. One of the the categories that I'm sure this is I making this happen. There's probably something I should hit.
That's okay.
But we created a category, again, many years ago, called the strategy of preeminence. And it's a strategic philosophy, I'm answering the question, by the way, I'm not going ADD on you or rogue, or a philosophical strategy that's designed to establish your business, your product, service, or you, if you're the product or service, and elevate you to a stature of being viable choice, the most trusted advisor in the category for life. And it's predicated first and foremost by understanding better than anyone else the mind and the motives of your market, trying to really examine and explore and understand and evaluate and acknowledge and appreciate and empathize with how the target audience is seeing life and what they really want. One of our first books had a little segment in it and said when people go to the hardware store to buy a drill, they don't want a drill. They want a hole, but they don't even really want a hole. They want to fasten something, and they don't really want to fasten something. They want to watch their big screen TV or put up their picture or have the water come running out of the tap or turn the doorknob. And you have to realize that you're not selling a thing. You're selling an impact or what that product or service deployed in somebody's life or business will produce. We have another, I'm giving you a lot of stuff here. We have a concept that has transformed people because part of the premise of being preeminent is being able to put into words for your audience, for your target audience, really what they are feeling, sensing, what they want to get closer to and away from. And it's really not achieved as much as you would think by copyright. There's a process that we created again years ago called the Amazon.com School of Marketing Research Advertising, and it's a really powerful approach. If you want to own mind share, you have to be able to speak beyond the superficiality of somebody's mind. You have to go beyond it, and the way to do it is take whatever the category of business you're in, doesn't matter. You're in, what would you call yourself in? Who do you think you're in?
Oops. Say that again.
What do you
Call
think
ourselves what? In our business?
What do you think? Yeah, what's the category of business you're in? What do you think? What, if you were to find a category, what would you call it?
I mean, it's communication. It's
what I thought. Okay, so here's what you do if you want to own mindshare. You would go to Amazon. You would see all the books for the last 3 years that were bestsellers, the top 10 or 20 or 30 in the category of communication. And if you said graphic, communication, you go to all those categories. You'd look at all the bestsellers. You would look at the titles and subtitles because most books sadly sell because of the promise and the premise, not because of the content. You would look at the chapter titles for the same reason. Then the real sleeper here is you'd go to the reviews. You would go to the 0s, 1s, and the 5s. And the reason is when people are passionate about anything, positive, passionate, or negative passionate, their subconscious overrides their conscious. If you've ever thought about somebody who's very happy or not very happy, if you back out the vulgarity, it's pretty profound how they express themselves. It's almost scary because it's so crystal clear, it's dimensional, it's very precise, it's analogies. So if you go to Amazon and you look at the 0s and 1s, which are people who are passionately unhappy with whatever the book was, the 5s, when they're thrilled, they're going to give you language patterns that are coming from beyond the superficiality. And if you do that first, then you go to discussion groups and you get the 0s and the 5 type things about their happiness or unhappiness with products, services, experiences. And then you go to competition and look at the reviews. And now you've got 3 categories. You've got the titles from the book, subtitles, and then you got the negatives and the positives. You got them in columns. You can speak, you can write fabulous copy, you can communicate great emails, you can have great sales scripts, you can have great landing pages, you can have great personal understanding and expression. And if you do that, that answers the question in a protracted way for your whoever asked it.
What's that? Who are we asking?
Well, whoever asked the question, that's the answer. Is you learn how to speak to them beyond the superficiality that everyone else is. You learn to appreciate them in a way nobody else has. You learn to show them that you get them in a way that is different than anyone else. By the way, if you want to be seen as the most trusted advisor, but you call somebody a customer, what you are saying, if you look up Webster's dictionary definition, you are saying to them, because a customer is merely somebody who buys a commodity or a service, it's not any great relationship. A client, conversely, is above even a patient. It's somebody under the care, the protection, the well-being. If you want to have be seen as the most trusted advisor in the category, you, your product, your service, your people, your company, you better think in terms of being a trusted advisor, not being a marginalized commodity. So there's a lot of interesting psychology behind this.
Oh my gosh, I'm like obsessing now over the reviews and and how to like really gather all that information to directly speak to what that person is looking for.
It's
And
very
instead of,
powerful.
it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And I love things like that you can take action on right now, you know, go and do that
Well,
today.
and just for everybody's benefit, it's never failed. When I get a new client, I make them have somebody do that. And we immediately integrate that into everything they're doing. And almost immediately you'll see a huge boost, because they're not, I mean, even the most dedicated and passionate copywriters don't go deep into the mind of the market. And
Right.
and it's not, it's different than doing a call and asking questions, because it's I mean, I don't personally like focus groups, because they're not asked, pardon me, they're not asked to vote with their checkbooks or their credit cards. They're asked what their opinion is. When you go to the methodology I just shared, you penetrate the facade that people put up. You penetrate the deflectors that exist in their action and the resistance, and you get right to the core of who, what, why they are. It's a very powerful process, and
That's
it
so
transforms
powerful.
people. Yeah, you
Yeah.
gain a greater understanding and empathy for who you're dealing with, and because everybody's got a different reality going on.
Yep. And everybody, no matter what it is that you're buying, whether it's a service, a product, it's never really about the thing. It's about the transformational feeling afterwards.
That's fabulously true, and you're right on money. Most people don't understand it. It's how it's going to make them feel differently, and also you have to countermand an inherent this tendency, more so today, people worrying about making the wrong decision, a bad decision, choosing the wrong option. The biggest enemy you're fighting, I mean, there's three enemies. One is direct competition. The other is indirect. Today, more than ever before, you might be in an industry that has a certain application to an issue, but now there's all kinds of alternative means of dealing with, solving with, enhancing that. So you got to compete with direct competition, indirect, and the worst enemy is procrastination, equivocation, uncertainty. We have a concept, I'm giving you all our concepts, it's called access denied. And there's about 10 gradients that people don't realize. If you're not getting the result you want from whatever you're doing, you're being denied access to trust, access to valuing, access to believing, access to, I mean, all kinds of things. And if you don't understand, as you said, it goes back and circles back to your question. You know, what if somebody keeps doing something that's not working? And Einstein, everyone should know that, said that's the utter definition of insanity, is doing a lot more of what's not really working well and thinking that I mean, when I come back, my picture doesn't come back right away, and I'm assuming the sound doesn't either. So it's assuming you're going to get any other result. You have so many alternatives and options, and you don't have the right. If you're going to, I mean, there's a great quote, and the quote's Socrates. Socrates said, "A life unexamined is a life not worth living," and mine is a business that's not constantly examined and re-examined from every impact and leverage point available to see how it's performing, how much better it could be performing, how much faster, safer, longer it could be performing, is a business not worth owning. And I think most people don't have a clue how much
Yeah.
more is really possible.
Yeah, and that's why I think so many businesses start and don't make it, in those first few years, because they're not thinking about those things, and
Yeah, it's
it's
interesting. I did a clubhouse a couple of weeks ago, and it was a large one, and there were a lot of car dealers on there, and there were a lot of salespeople, car salespeople, and other salespeople. And they said, "Well, what do you do if you're just starting out and you don't have any clients?" And I said, "Well," they said, "Oh, you got to work harder and you got to learn all these techniques, but that presupposes you've got prospects." I said, "Why don't you instead go? I mean, we've got a method for getting 1,000 network referral source, and all it is today, if you think about this, is pretty profound. The people that are watching you right now or watching me are a very rarefied group of business owners. They may not be operating at optimal, but they at least have a context in their mind that correlates that correlates expertise, yours or mine or whoever you have as a guest, to making more money or being more successful or performing better. But they're a very small group. The majority of business owners are try to be islands. They don't seek out expertise. They don't pay for experts, consulting, masterminds, programs. That works to your advantage today, because you can go in your community or your industry and you can go to organizations and you can literally say to them, you are relevant in the community, you have a great reputation, you have value, and I want to do everything, or my company wants to do everything to see that your business doesn't just survive but thrive. So with your permission, every week I'm going to share with you some piece of knowledge or expertise that I gather for you about selling, marketing, getting your people to buy more, managing, whatever.
little technical
Get
stuff.
what's going on. But if you get to see how our business operates and our character and our values, we would hope that at some time in the future you'll start referring business. We've done that for people, and in 6 months built them 1,000 network sourcing referral network, and within about a month they start getting referrals if they add value to people. So I mean, there's all kinds. I'm getting a headache from doing.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things you can do to accelerate, to elevate, to mitigate, but you have to be aware of them, and most people aren't. And the people they seek, very great experts, but they tend to be, respectfully speaking, one-trick pony. They're
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
the Facebook conversion, or the funnel people, or the launch people, or the Instagram, or the TikTok or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, but most entrepreneurs only see little tiny, little itty bitty elements of the whole picture.
Yeah. That's so true. As you're talking about really investing in the learning and understanding your business and courses, and I know you have so much of that people, I want to let them know, by the way, how they can get more information on that, because I do think it's true that there are entrepreneurs that are like, no, I'm not going to invest in a coach or a mentor or whatever it is that could actually teach them, because they don't see an immediate ROI, like, oh, I put this out on Facebook and I saw an ROI. And it's so unfortunate, because I look back, and in my business that's almost 12 years old now, every single decision that I made came from something that I invested learning into, or a group of other, like Genius Network or places like that, where it was the relationships I made and the people that I worked with, the coaches that I worked with, the things that I educated myself on. Had I not done all of that, I would be lost in that I keep trying the same thing and it's not working and it's not working. What's going on? I'd be in that insanity mode, and you need that in order to think differently. First, you just need that in order to know how to think. And that's the hard thing, is people don't know how to think about a problem.
No, they don't. You know, we did, I did a keynote a couple of years ago. I did one for Joe too, Joe Polish many years ago before that, but it was on thinking differently. And it basically challenged people to learn strategic thinking, Socratic thinking, consequential thinking, critical thinking. Um, it's interesting because I think I'm very good at pattern recognition, and I've had discussions with Tony Robbins, and and it's interesting because there's 5 gradients of even pattern recognition, and most people don't even practice one of them. But these are the kind. I mean, most people. You know, there's that I can't remember if it's Emerson or whoever, about people living lives of quiet desperation. People don't even know they're desperate. It's so sad because I think either you you either control your business controls you, one of the two. And if you think of life, at almost anything that happens in life or business, 2 or 3% are going to be the result of acts of God. COVID, a hurricane, excuse me. But 98% of what happens in our lives and our businesses are the result of actions we take or don't take, decisions we make or don't make. Think about it. Everything happens because of a decision. Forces, elements, and principles or laws that we either not legal ones, but laws of performance or everything that we either harness or let whipsaw us. And everything is really physics. You expand or you contract. You multiply or you grow or you die. And that's true of everybody. And I mean, you can't change what's happening in the world, but you can change your strategic, proactive response to it. And most people, they're angry. But what good is that going to do? What is anger going to do? What is continuing to do what's not working? What is disacknowledging shifts that are occurring? I mean, uh, it's ludicrous when you. I said it's ludicrous when you think about it. Anyhow, geez, I got to figure this out next time.
You know
Anyhow,
what? Despite we got comments saying it doesn't matter. You're phenomenal, and it doesn't matter about the technical difficulties. Having a mentor is like having mentors, like taking you on an airplane to arrive to your destination versus driving a car. I love Jay. I can't tell you how many I love Jays there are here. Everyone loves you. Well, I know. So everyone loves you, and I want it just for anybody who, you know, if this is. Probably not, but if it's the first time that they're listening to you or just gotten introduced into the world of Jay Abraham, where can they go? I know I think Brian posted your documentary, but there's so many ways to learn from you.
If they're small, I mean, I'm pretty expensive, and I have services and programs, and I'm delighted. I mean, if you're just and I mean this respectfully, just small, but you need help, we've got 800 resources on abraham.com they can go to, and none of them even sell anything, and they're all very qualitative. We've got another one called jayabraham.com that has lower price stuff. If they're big enough and they want to really talk, go to jay@abraham.com. But I'm very expensive, and I'm not saying that arrogant. It's just that if you got a big enough company with a lot of moving parts, I love working with people, and I've been very blessed to help a lot of people grow. But there's a lot of stuff out there. We have a blog, not a blog. We have a podcast called The Ultimate Entrepreneur. We don't promote it, but it's got 260 or 70 episodes, and most of them are pretty cool. And when I do keynotes, they're never the same, and we put them up, and it's got a lot of cool stuff. But whatever helps them is great.
You're amazing. I'm so proud to know you, and you might not even remember so many different little tiny pieces of advice just in the years that I've known you that you've thrown at me, and I'm like, oh, just completely caused me to think differently, and in a matter of 15 seconds. So I appreciate you so much, and thank you so much for being here with our audience today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you all, and I hope that what I shared makes you slow down and think about what you could be doing differently, better, higher, faster, more contribution based, more value. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.